Okay. Good evening. As it is 6 p.m., I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council for November 16th to order. It is 6 p.m. on the 16th of November, and that's the third Tuesday of the month, and that's a regular meeting night for us. Tonight we'll begin with an invocation led by Pastor Ron Lawler with the Family Bible Church, and immediately following that I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, so I'd like to invite you to stand and join us for the invocation.
If you would like to join me in prayer. Our Father in heaven, as we come into this season of Thanksgiving, we are indeed thankful for the privilege and the joy of living in Oak Harbor. We're also thankful for the City Council and our mayor who work so hard to make our city as best as it can be. Pray for your peace to rest on each one of them, on their families. Pray for their health and their well-being. Pray that tonight you will guide them in every decision they have to make, that they'll have discernment and wisdom. They'll have unity in the midst of even diversity. Thank you for bringing these folks to serve us here. May your blessing rest on each person here tonight. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Lawler. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, due to COVID-19, this will be both a physical meeting location and a virtual meeting per Washington Proclamation 20-28. Due to Governor Inslee's order, masks are required for everyone in City Council, regardless of vaccination status. City staff are participating via teleconference. Guests that are included in staff presentations will be excused from the Ring Central meeting at the conclusion of the agenda item as appropriate. Tonight's meeting may be viewed live via YouTube and on cable channel 10 HD 1090. And at this time, I'd like to please call on our city clerk, Julie Lindsay, for a roll call. Julie?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Munz.
Present.
Councilmember Heisen.
Present.
Councilmember Servadius.
Present.
Councilmember Mack.
Present.
Councilmember Wiesner.
Present.
Councilmember Goebel.
Present.
Mayor Councilmember Wassinger is not with us this evening and would ask to be excused.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to excuse Councilor Wassinger at this time.
Second.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll
and a
move
second.
it.
Yeah, I think we got a motion and a second. Motion by Councilor Wiesner, second by Councilor Goebel, to excuse Councilor Wassinger from tonight's meeting. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, looks like maybe that passes, okay, unanimously. Good. Thank you for that. Are there any suggested changes to the agenda? Hearing, or if there are none, I'm looking, I don't see any, okay. Then the agenda will be approved as presented, and we will move on to section number 2. And we don't have any proclamations this evening, but I think we certainly have someone to honor, someone that I've known for a lot of years. I think we've got some, obviously, contingent of people here with tonight's honoree, and I think we also have our police chief who has joined us from a meeting out of town, and I know there will be some counselors that probably will want to say some things, but I'd just like to start off by saying that I've known Sergeant Niiro for a lot of years, come to appreciate his steadfast loyalty as not only an officer of our fine police force, but member of our community. He and his family have been here through and seen much change and become a part of it. And we're going to miss him in a big way. But he certainly is entitled to retire at some point in his career, I guess. So having said that, I would like to turn it over to Chief Dresker at this time. And then, Chief, if you've got anybody else here that wants to join in, they're welcome to also. But we'll start with the Chief.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. Hopefully you can hear me okay. This is a first for me, trying to introduce somebody and talk about them when I'm gone. Unfortunately, that couldn't be helped today for a prearranged meeting. So I know I saw Sergeant Gravel there. I think Sergeant Hogan's there. I don't see, I believe Sergeant Niiro's in the background there somewhere. All I see is the council chambers. So Cedric is going to be starting a new chapter in December, but tonight we're here to honor him for 30 years of service with the police department. 30 years is a long time, a lot of service to the community. Cedric, I've known him since I got here, of course, for 5 years. He was in the sergeant role. I think he's been a sergeant for around 8 or 9 years, I believe. Cedric, I think, has done a lot of most everything within the department. He was key for our Explorer program. I know he did reserves. He was in detectives, I believe, for a while. And is somebody who's really built the department up through the years. And I appreciate his service. I appreciate his leadership as a sergeant. And, you know, it's, when people move on to other things too, that's certainly something we want to make sure that they're enjoying that. So Cedric, thank you for your 30 years. And Sergeant Hoagland, I believe, is there. Again, I don't see him, but Sergeant Hoagland's got a challenge coin for you just for now. And
can you see us now, Chief?
yep, go ahead. So Cedric, thank you for your 30 years. Appreciate that.
Even you were twinkling Jump Street.
And that's my presentation. Thanks for putting up with me on video. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chief. So before we turn it to council, I don't know whether anyone else would like to say a few words, but we'll certainly look to Cedric to please give us a few words and introduce those with you tonight if you'd like. And then following that, we'll turn to council, and then we'll have a very short recess to say thank you personally. So, Cedric, we don't have a podium anymore, thanks to COVID.
Right.
Nothing to hide behind.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank the City Council for many, many years of your support, without which the department wouldn't be where we are right now, and the community as well. Thank you very much. With me tonight is my stepdaughter Sydney and her husband, and Arlo and Peyton, and new baby Camden, and my stepson Brett, my wife Kathy, and my parents Yuki and Katz are here with me tonight.
That's great, great. Well, again, thank you. I know that I could go on and on. You know, you're certainly somebody that I could call at any time for help, no matter what the circumstance was, no matter what the time was. So that is a special thing, and you've just always been here, always available. Thank you. So we'll turn to council. We have Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Can you hear us?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
Sergeant Cedric Niiro. We go back just a little while, but want to thank you for your expertise. But you serve at a level, as many of our officers do, that they should attain to through your excellence and what you've shown the community. And you will be sorely missed, but look forward to seeing you around the town and looking relaxed. Anyway, congratulations, and so glad your family could be with you tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Turn to Councilor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. Cedric, just wanted to say thank you. I couldn't be there tonight. I've been a little under the weather, and I would shake your hand, but I might give you whatever I have. But your career is impeccable, and you are the consummate professional. But I want to say thank you as well. You know, many people know this, but there's probably a lot that don't. The volunteerism that both you and Kathy do. You've been just a stellar volunteer in the community and a leader in that space as well. So maybe you'll have more time now to do some of those other activities. But thank you for all you've done in all the ways that you've served our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Servatius. Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and Officer Niiro, I thank you so much. 30, you said it. It went really quick, didn't it? I mean, I can actually remember, I think when you first came on the department, you've done almost every job. I think K-9 officer, even in amongst all of that, back when we had a K-9 program. Yes, I second Councilmember Servatius' comments, your volunteerism in the community. We've had the pleasure of being able to sit at a few fundraiser dinners together over the years, and you're certainly a member of the community, and so you're more than just a police officer to us. And we appreciate you and look forward to seeing you around for many years. I know this is going to be your home, right?
It is.
Great. We appreciate you, and we appreciate all your family's support. Couldn't do it without them either. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wiesner. Councilor Mack.
Sergeant Niiro, thank you so much. It was always a pleasure whenever I called OHPD, and I was always wondering which officer would show up. When it was you showing up, and I says, oh, great, I finally got someone I can work with here. You're always good, very polite, professional, straightforward, willing to offer some suggestions and recommendations. You'd always take the heat off of me, the frustration, and it made the day go much smoother in all the different circumstances over the years. Oak Harbor should be really proud to have an officer like you all these years. You did a great job. Enjoy your retirement. I wish you well, all the family. I'm not far behind you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Mack. Councilor Millie. Councilor Goebel, sorry.
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor. Officer Niiro, I haven't really had the pleasure to meet you, but it sounds like you've been an outstanding officer. And thank you for your 30 years of service. Being a police officer, I don't think is the easiest job at times. I think it's quite a difficult profession. I feel like officers and police officers don't hear thank you enough. So thank you for doing what you did for 30 years and being, a public servant to the safety of our community. It's an incredible place to live, and I think that's a true testament to your work and work of your fellow officers. So thank you, and like Councilor Mack said, enjoy your retirement. I'm not close behind you, but enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Goebel. So with that, I think we're going to take a 5-minute recess and tell you personally, thanks, and thanks to everyone in the department for coming tonight to show your support, and thank you for everything that you do. So we appreciate it. So we'll reconvene in 5 minutes.
No, man, I'm out of here.
So good evening and welcome again. I'd like to reconvene this regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. We took a 5-minute recess to say thank you to Sergeant Niiro for 30 years of service. We're going to reconvene at 6:19 here. It is November 16th, 2021. So we are now moving to Section 3 on our agenda, citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on subjects of interest not listed on the agenda or items listed on the consent agenda. Citizens may also comment on corresponding agenda items. In this hybrid meeting format, citizens can attend and give comment in person or via the online comment form at www.oakharbor.org/public comment or email the city clerk at jlindsay@oakharbor.org prior to 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting, or call 360-279-4571 to leave a voicemail to be played during the council meeting. Call to leave a voicemail after 5 p.m. on the Friday preceding the meeting and prior to 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting. When leaving a voicemail for public comment, please state your first and last name clearly and limit the comments to 3 minutes. We've received 4 comments from employees since our November 3rd meeting, and we received 5 comments from members of the public. All were submitted online. These have been shared with council and are on display here. I would like to hear from council whether they wish to have us continue sharing the comments from our employees on morale here as part of the meeting record, or if they would prefer to only forward them to council hereafter. Okay, at this time, oh, we're still in public comment? Okay. Okay, these are citizen comments now. Okay, so that concludes the comments that have been submitted by both staff and the public for citizen comment period. Are there any members of the public present who wish to speak? If so, the clerk will call your name in the order.
No, Mayor, no one signed in to speak this evening.
Okay, so we have no other public comment at this time. So before we move on to our consent agenda, I see that Mayor Pro Tem has her hand up. Mayor Pro Tem?
Sorry, Mayor, I left it up. You asked a question if council wanted to continue to have this displayed at meetings, and I would say yes, because then it really becomes public.
Great.
If you just send it to council meetings, then there's no public record of it. So I would suggest that we continue, but I'm only one of 7.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Servadius.
Yes, just following up on that, I too think if we're going to do it, well, let me back up. If we're going to do it, it needs to be valid and somewhat statistically relevant. I reflect back on the Whitby News Times that probably, it might be a decade ago, it was probably about the time I came on council. They actually stopped taking anonymous comments online because of what it created. And so while I appreciate the fact that, anonymity gives someone the ability to speak freely, some of these comments, we don't know if they're employees. They're probably obviously citizens or constituents. They may or may not be in the city limits, and not that that really matters. But I think we need to make it a little more valid with regards to employees. I go back to the method that Councilmember Munns and myself suggested. We were going to give them a piece of paper that was embossed with the city's seal, that there's only one city seal, and it would be very hard to replicate that. So they could have responded with anonymity, but they would have had to have been given that piece of paper. And in the current system we have, you could have any number of respondents, but there's no way to tell if they're statistically valid, if it's the same person submitting comments. So I think it's valid and important to get the feedback, but we need to make sure that it's relevant. And for that, I would probably say on the citizen comment period, just like if they show up in person, we ask them to state their name and address, or at least if they used to do the address, if they live in the city limits. So that would be my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sebadius. Good thoughts. Any other, Councilor Wiesner?
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding the employee comments and whether or not we continue to share them, I think we should. I think it's a way to keep it at the forefront. It needs to be at the forefront until we get a handle on this. And I want staff to know that we're seeing them and that we're listening to them and that we're taking the time out of our meetings to review them, and that's one way to do it, and so that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wiesner. Councilor Goebel?
Thank you, Mayor. I feel pretty similar to Councilmember Wiesner. I think it's important that the employees feel seen and heard, especially with kind of, I feel like, what we're trying to maybe navigate right now as a city. I did want to clarify, though, because Councilmember Servadius, I thought, brought up an interesting point. Yeah, if somebody can remain anonymous, and, sometimes it's hard they can just kind of say, like, whatever they want. So I'm just kind of curious to clarify, when somebody submits, and I probably personally should go online and really familiarize myself, but when someone submits, could someone hypothetically say they are an employee of the city of Oak Harbor and submit a comment online? Is there a way to verify an employee ID number or some sort of PIN that only city employees know, so you don't? I kind of heard that come from Councilmember Sevadia, so I just wanted to clarify that that's not even a possibility. Do you know, or Sabrina?
Well, we have done a lot of studies and comments, and we have employees who want to remain anonymous, completely anonymous. And we respect that, certainly. But I certainly hear what Councilor Servadius is saying too. We might get comments that maybe more than one comment, the way we're currently set up, from maybe one employee. We may get more than one comment, certainly from citizens, about the same subject. And I can tell you that, yes, I get some comments in the mayor's comment box that are, not related to city business even, but yet people are getting a chance to speak. And if I can communicate with them about, if they leave a name, and if it's a county problem or some other entity, I still try to help them. But back to what you're suggesting, we don't currently have it set up for an employee number, and some would not want to do that, unfortunately. We read tonight that they're suggesting a totally separate outside study, and that's okay. And we have a new legal help these days that could will ask her firm if they've got some history with that and a better way to do it.
Thank you. I mean, I agree. I think we should then prioritize just then the employees feeling seen and heard until we can kind of figure out how to establish a system of being able to remain anonymous, but also us being able to verify that these comments are, relevant or really pertinent to being heard at city council meetings. But I think the priority, right now still stands. I feel the same way as Councilmember Wiesner, that they need to feel seen and have an opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Councilor Goebel. Councilor Mack?
Thank you, Mayor. I too think we should move forward with taking comments both from employees in addition to citizens. But when we do citizens, I think whether we're doing it on the internet and they're emailing in, it needs to coincide with what we're doing in council chambers, so it's fair both ways, regardless of what type of information we're asking or identification, that type of thing. But I think we should continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mack. Okay, I appreciate that input, and with that, we will. We'll now turn to item 4, which is our consent agenda. I believe we've got, A through C. And unless somebody would like to change that consent agenda or has a question, that'll be approved as submitted. We will then move on to section 5. Mayor's comments. I have a few things here, several things actually. A sincere thank you to the Navy League and all that were involved in the wonderful and moving Veterans Day event at the Oak Harbor High School Memorial Stadium. There was concern about this windy, wet weather, and they got it right in the middle of the rain. And after the last big rain and before the next one started, the event was over. So it wasn't too wet. Special thanks to them for helping me with some reserved parking and with the city proclamation. That was a wonderful event. So thank you. Local events moving forward now. These are a combination, I think, of our Main Street program and our Chamber of Commerce, and it's my understanding that even maybe one or more of these are a partnership between the two. First on my list is Adopt a Toy Soldier, starting October 15th, and the decorated toy soldier must be turned in by November 19th. So that's not too far away, I guess. That's been going on for a while. The Green Ticket Cash Giveaway runs between November 1st and goes until December 17th. The Snowflake Hunt on December 4th, and then that runs through December 17th. The Santa Cruz and Tree Lighting on Saturday, December 4th is between 4 and 6 p.m. There is Small Business Saturday, and then the Oak Harbor Chamber Luncheon on November 18th between 11:30 and 1, and their program is the Whidbey SeaTac State of the Station. So it must be the state of the Whidbey SeaTac Station. I think the CEO from the actual base was there a while back, so I don't think it has anything to do with NAS Whidbey. The City of Oak Harbor All-Staff Meeting will be December 18th from 11 until 1. This is virtual meeting. City offices will be closed during the meeting to allow staff time to participate. Multiple City Council meetings this week. In addition to tonight's meeting, we have a council workshop tomorrow, and tomorrow's the 17th. That workshop is at 2 p.m. We also have a special City Council meeting again on Friday, November 19th at 4 p.m. The mayor's comment box online is available on the city website via the search box or under How Do I, under the second column labeled Contact the City. Thanksgiving holiday, city offices will be closed in observance of Thanksgiving on Thursday, November 25th, and Friday, the 26th. Garbage recycling and yard waste service collection for Thursday will take place on Friday. Storm updates are available online. Access Washington State Department of Transportation for road closures, ferry schedules, and safety tips. We are hiring. Find out more about available positions on our website at www.oakharbor.org. We've had some inquiries about attire for council meetings, and I think this would be a good topic for our city council to discuss at the retreat, which will be scheduled for February. Until then, I would suggest business casual as is appropriate, but that'll be a council decision if we decide to change anything there or set up a code. I don't know that one even exists, to tell you the truth. Thank you for the extraordinary efforts of WSDOT, Puget Sound Energy, our Public Works team, police and fire during these recent storm events. I heard our Fire Chief Merrill say that it's been a real boring last couple of days, and I think he meant just exactly the opposite. I know that they've been out on calls day and night, so thank you very much for those efforts and that hard work. And finally, thoughts and prayers for our past Mayor Pro Tem Danny Pagao. Danny's down in Seattle and will undergo some heart surgery tomorrow at 7 a.m. So keep Danny in your thoughts and prayers, please. We've talked to his family and it's always helpful. So with that, I'll turn to council for council comments. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem, you are muted.
Yeah, can't hear you.
As everyone knows, thank you. This is, Mayor, thank you. This is November and it is the month of giving. Would like everyone to think about Help House and our neighbors that can't afford a Thanksgiving dinner. They will accept any donations, whether it be canned goods or money. It's just a wonderful feeling there to be able to help others. There's usually 500 baskets that are done. They start giving them out on the 19th of November, which is this Friday, and they'll give it out the next week, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. So anything, you know, they can take $5 and make it look like $50. So anything would be much appreciative. Also want to thank Navy League. That is something near and dear to my heart. And a special thanks to David Laurel. He has started this many years ago as a new tradition because we didn't have anything. And this is his last one for planning it. And of course, it was superb and excellent. And then also want to say thank you to your neighbor. We are out of town right now, but I know my house sitter has gone and offered, because we have a generator, help our neighbors if they need to recharge their phone or need a warm place to go or heat up some food or something. Please look after your neighbor. We will not have power on Waterloo until the 18th of November. So anyway, hopefully it'll be sooner, but I know there's many other streets around in the city limits, and please look after your neighbor. I mean, that's what this is all about. We are, in a sense, a village, and we need to each help each other. So thank you very much, and that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. It was a heck of a day yesterday, and I'd just like to say thank you to all our first responders. Chief Merrill's here. Great job. I had a little incident tonight. I get home and my firearm's screeching, and the first thing I thought of was, where's Chief? You know, but it was a false alarm, and I took care of it. Chief Dressler, you and all your men, thank you. Seeing you out and about with your regular errands and the crews checking up on all the businesses while the power's out. Also, forgotten people, Puget Sound Energy. It's great when you guys get out, and there's nothing reassuring when that power clicks back on. And I think you guys all up in the buckets and the high winds and trying to get our power restored. So thanks again, Puget Power.
Thank you, Councilor Mack. Okay. Oh, Councilor Goebel.
Yeah, just to echo that, thank you, first responders. What a challenging time. When you're needed, you are needed, and I'm sure you were needed all day yesterday and today. So thank you, and also huge thank you to Puget Sound Energy. You know, the schools, we were able to have our power restored midday, and can't thank you enough. That's so important for our students' education to have power and internet in schools. So thank you to everyone who made this all come back to normal as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Councilor Goebel. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I forgot to say thank you also, besides the many staff members. I think the marina gets overlooked. Apparently the log boom broke, and there's more damage to FDOC, unfortunately, and they have been scuttling about trying to save things too, as far as our waterfront and things like that. So besides the fire and police and Puget South, sound. It's just been incredible when the town unites together, but didn't want to forget the marina people. So thank you.
Okay, with that, I think that concludes the council comments. So we will move on then through, we have no public hearings or ordinances or resolutions tonight, but we have some contracts. So we'll move on to item number 8A, which is development agreement with Pacific North Group, Inc., Hillside Planned Residential Development. And for that presentation, I will turn to Development Services Director David Kuhl.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. David Kuhl, Development Services Director. Tonight, we'd like to talk about the development agreement for the Hillside Planned Residential Development. It's between Pacific North Group and the City of Oak Harbor. The Hillside PRD that you all remember, that's the project that's up behind Walmart and Safeway. It consists of about 20.11 acres of property. And that is also something that's been through the city land use hearing examiner, which was approved on March 31st, 2020. So right about the time of the pandemic is when that project was approved. And so we're still moving forward on it. This development agreement is the next stage. The preliminary plat PRD describes the project as 192 single-family residential lots. So what we have tonight is we have a Hillside PRD Phase 1. Phase 1 is 70 lots. And what I want to show you is Segment 1 consists of 10 homes. And that is where the model home portion of the project will go. Segment 2 consists of 20 homes, Segment 3, 20 more, and Segment 4 will consist of 20 homes for a total of 70. A little bit of background for you. The development agreement was established in Washington under RCW 36.70B 171. And it's been around a few years, so lots of development agreements have been done in Washington. And I've done several outside the state years ago. But this development agreement process establishes things very generally. This is general, and that development standards, as well as other provisions that govern and vest the development, can be put into a development agreement. Also, in general, you can use development agreements to establish uses and mitigation as needed based on the particular project you're doing. This particular agreement, though, tonight has a term. The term of the agreement is established through the zoning ordinance. Section 21040.020 is in the subdivision section, and that allows 5 years to file a final plat after the hearing examiner decision. The current code allows a 1-year extension to that particular time frame. Now, this development agreement also contemplates the thought that the economy goes in phases. The business cycle is 7 to 10 years. You never know what's going to happen. So we wanted to establish the ability to create a code change later that would give a 1-year extension in addition to the 1-year extension. So you technically have about 7 years to do this. And that would be under 2140.0204. Section 7 of the development agreement says, as it now reads or as it may hereinafter be amended. So what this development agreement does is it allows a developer to take advantage of a new code that comes in. Typically, you can't do that. You have to you establish whatever codes are in place when you apply and you have a complete application. Those are the codes you're bound to. In this case, if we change the code, then through this development agreement, the developer would be allowed to take advantage of that future code change. So the idea is to be flexible and accommodating for economic development and give it a chance to succeed. Development agreement, this particular one has some key components. Timing and phasing, which involves the 4 segments we've talked about earlier that make up phase 1. That's a big component of this. Typically, you develop in phases, and so this development has 2 phases. And normally you would develop all of phase 1 first. But here, we're going to allow 4 segments to make up phase 1. The construction in the project will take place in segment 1 before the final subdivision is approved. So essentially, the developer is going to need to finish all the construction for all the infrastructure at the end of segment 1 before a final plat can be approved. And at that point, they'll have to have bonding for the rest of the development, which will be assurances for the city. The development agreement also establishes the 4 segments will have performance bonds, and it establishes the bond will be 112% of the cost of improvements. That's a standard code language we have currently for subdivisions. Also, each segment will come along with utility construction phasing plans that we'll want to see. That includes roads, grading, erosion control, sanitary sewer, water, power, and stormwater. So all those elements will need to be in place before the developer can move forward with each particular segment. The next steps we have in this project is the developer, who I've talked to yesterday and today, and we've stayed in constant contact. They'll need to have the performance bond for all 4 segments to complete phase 1. And then segment 1 also will need to have the engineering plan sheet submitted to engineering and approved before they'll be able to build. So what we've tried to do is be as flexible as possible, but also make sure that the city is covered for any possible liabilities. So those are the next steps that the developer is going to need to go through, and he's prepared to do that. The development agreement is signed by the developer, and so we just need your particular approval. So I've put up the recommended motion here for you, and I'll leave it up in case you don't have it anywhere else. And I'll be available here for any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Cool. Appreciate that. Before we turn to council, I'd like to verify with our city clerk that we've gotten no input from the public, or if we have.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no comments on this item from the public.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Then I'll turn to council for questions or, okay, we have Mayor Pro Tem Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Cool, I love that section 7, I believe, in your development plan that says if once it is signed in the application, if it is changed, they could actually have another year to finish it, considering the times with people not being able to get in supplies and things like that. So I think that is grand. Thank you, whoever put that in there. I think that's an excellent idea. Very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Servadius.
Thank you. I appreciate the flexibility of staff working on this. This is something we've talked about for several years now in a couple of different scenarios. And I don't think flexibility is a bad thing, and I don't think thinking outside of the box is a bad thing. Considering the last, I guess I used to say 18 months, I guess it's been 20 months now or so with COVID. One of my gauges and I'm not a developer or even a contractor, but I like to tinker and build things. So when I go into Home Depot, I oftentimes go into the lumber section because it smells good. But I always glance at the price of plywood, and I glance at a standard 2x4, and I'm used to paying, in my brain, the number is about $2.50 for a typical stud. And during COVID, that number jumped up to almost $11. The other day when I was in there, it was $3.48. So I think some flexibility in phasing is a good thing. If staff feels comfortable, legal feels comfortable that we're covered and protected with regards to the bonding issues, then anytime that we can give some flexibility to someone that's trying to solve a problem, in this particular case, housing, and developing one of the last, well, probably the last large undeveloped parcel in town to try and get some density. Then definitely want to support that effort. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Servadius. Councilor Goebel.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this sounds exciting. You know, I feel like we've all kind of seen that piece of land change over the last year and a half or so, from being a forest, being cleared. Now there's those lovely mounds of wood. So I think this sounds exciting that we possibly could be moving forward with this. I appreciate, you know, I feel like in our council budgeting process, we all talked a lot about focusing on economic development in the city of Oak Harbor. And it sounds like a lot of the pros of this type of agreement, what I'm hearing is, you know, flexibility, it's focusing on economic development, we're trying to be problem solving, thinking outside the box, you know, giving a project of this size a chance to succeed. Obviously, it sounds like this is not the precedent, and it hasn't been done really in Washington State. So I have a couple questions. I was curious, David, are there any, like, really, you know, I'm not a developer, obviously. Are there any clear glaring cons? It sounds like we've done a lot of work. You know, the language in the background summaries, the city's been really innovative to plan safeguards in the required procedures, so the city is not, you know, liable with any legal or financial. But I just wanted to ask you for your professional opinion if you see any really glaring cons to this kind of agreement.
Well, sure. There are cons to any development as you go forward. A developer can sail along and be successful for a period of time. The economy goes south, anything can happen. And so then if something stops and the city is forced to cash bonds, it's not a really easy process. And so cities are not in the habit of liking to do that or even wanting to do that. It's an insurance policy for us that we don't want to have to use. We can, and we certainly would, but we hope not to, because it's more challenging than you would expect. So, but other than that, we just see a lot of positives with this segment plan, where instead of having retaining walls all across the entire hillside and a development spread way out, developing it in segments makes sense because it allows compact urban form to happen, and it allows development to take place logically and extending the utilities. So I think this developer has the right idea.
Thank you. And then my other question was, again, back to the background summary information. So it says each segment is a standalone project in the case that additional phases are not completed. And so, you know, in the event they finish phase one, I think that said there were 70 lots in phase one. What happens, like, if the development just, you know, there's a reason the developer has to back out of the project, or, you know, something has happened and a change? I was just kind of curious then what happens. Are you just left with 70 homes up there, or are we able, someone else can slide in and develop the other part of the land? How does that part of this work?
Great question. So there's 192 lots in 2 phases. And let's say in your scenario that the developer does do 70 lots and decides not to do the second phase, this development agreement will carry with the land. So the next developer that comes along will be bound by this development agreement. And so the developer can sell it, or, you know, whatever the situation is financially, it could move on to another buyer. Mm-hmm. So this development does carry with the land, so that's a good deal for us.
Yeah, allows us to be flexible too. So, okay. Well, thank you for answering my questions.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Goebel. Councilor Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Cool. I appreciate you and the staff, all your effort in moving this forward. I believe the flexibility of this development agreement is extremely important due to all the unusual and fast-moving market conditions out there in the real estate, which everybody's aware of. Also, I'd like to mention a few other things. The property is zoned for R4, which this development fits and complements our community. We have a need for housing. This is a great step in the right direction. Traffic concerns on Highway 20. The developer has allowed an easement to accommodate for future improvements to Highway 20. My understanding that Administrator Oborn is currently in talks with WashDOT for these Highway 20 concerns. Wastewater treatment facility. This new community will generate additional revenue with impact fees and bringing more homes online. My hope is that the community and the future housing will ease our utility rates. This is not one-of-a-kind agreement. Development agreements are commonly used by many Washington municipalities. Few are Gig Harbor, Issaquah, Mill Creek, Redmond, Snohomish County, Des Moines, Everett, are all listed on the MRSC websites. Gig Harbor's agreement dates back as far as 2000. In my opinion, this developer has the financial resources to see this project all the way through. The design and quality and construction is exactly what Oak Harbor is in need of. It will be a beautiful long-term addition to our waterfront community. Thank you.
That sounded pretty close to a motion, but I'm going to go to Councilor Wiesner first.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Cool, correct me if I'm wrong, but the development agreement doesn't change anything involving the PRD, which, was a very long process. This particular one included a hearing examiner, et cetera, other than just the phasing and the timing. And in exchange for us allowing some flexibility in the timing within phase one, the developer has voluntarily taken out a whole lot of bonds, which, like you say, are insurance policies we don't want to have to cash in, but they are insurance policies for the city in the event of the unthinkable happening. But am I not pretty well correct with all those statements?
Yes, Commissioner Wiesner, you're correct. The development agreement does not change the PRD. The PRD will remain in place, and so it gives flexibility as well in its own nature. And so, yes, the development will be established through the development agreement, and does provide a lot of assurance for both parties.
And again, these development agreements aren't unusual in the state of Washington. They're basically agreements that are entered into between two parties to allow flexibility, but then allow assurances within that flexibility for the municipalities, correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Wiesner. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. If there are no other comments, I'd be happy to make the motion.
You got it.
Do you see any?
Nope, no other comments. Go right ahead.
Okay. I move to adopt resolution number 21-27, approving a development agreement between Pacific North Group, Inc. and the City of Oak Harbor regarding the Hillside planned residential development.
Second.
So we've got a motion and a second. The motion reads exactly like the recommended action in our packets here and what's been up on the screen. That motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Munns, and the second was made by Councilor Goebel. Seeing no other input or questions, all in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye. Whatever. And it looks like we've got a unanimous.
Mayor, I'm going to abstain from a vote only because I have a client that has a contract on a house in phase one. And so there is a commission that would be due me, and I feel it's appropriate to abstain. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got five here that have voted for, one abstention, and we know why. So that passes almost unanimously, pretty close. So thank you very much for all the effort and work and all the process there. Congratulations. So we'll move on. Item number 8B on our agenda this evening then is the Teamsters Collective Bargaining Agreement. for the Old Carver Public Works Department. And for tonight's presentation, we have our Human Resource Manager, Emma House. Emma?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm actually going to be presenting your agenda items 8B and 8C at the same time. We negotiate both of these contracts at the same time, and so it made sense to go ahead and put the presentation together with both of them included. So this is to present the collective bargaining agreements for both the Marina and Public Works. We have union contracts agreements for both the Marina and Public Works with Teamsters Union, local number 231. To give you some background information, we started negotiations in March of 2021. Their contract actually expired on December 31st of 2020. And by October 19th of 2021 this year, we were able to reach a tentative agreement for a 3-year collective bargaining agreement for both the Marina and Public Works. These are 2 separate agreements, but they will be covering 3 years, 2021, 2022, and also 2023. Both of them will be set to expire in December 31 of 2023. Once we finished our negotiations, then the contracts did go to the bargaining unit members. So the employees were able to meet on November 1st with Public Works and on November 5th for the Marina. And both of the contracts were approved by those bargaining unit members. A recap in the negotiated items for both of the contracts. There is a cost of living adjustment that has been agreed upon of 2% for each year of the contract. So for 2021, 22, and 23. We have agreed to add Juneteenth as an observed holiday. We have tentatively agreed to adjust the night shift differential to 75 cents per hour. And we have tentatively agreed to adjust the health insurance premium cost share from 75%, 25% to 80%, 20% for dependent family coverage. And we're very happy to see that the union has come forward in favor of retaining employees and really addressing the longevity. They've requested for the longevity to be added in recognition of service for 5 to 30 years of service. And you have many long-term employees in the Public Works Department, so that's very good to see for them. This is just a summary of the other items that were discussed that were mainly just language items that were cleanups and items that we wanted to make sure were consistent between both contracts. So interim out-of-class assignment, there was a slight adjustment to the Marina's time frame to match with the Public Works contract already had. And also with the Marina contract, we added standby duty, which was already in the Public Works contract. In the Public Works contract, we adjusted the approved workwear slightly to give some flexibility to the employees. And in both of the contracts, we looked at the language in many different areas. And we clarified salary placement, we clarified vacation request, safety eyewear, the process for obtaining and maintaining their CDLs. We also talked about inclement weather and closure on non-recognized holidays and electronic communication devices. So there was a lot of topics of discussion and a lot of little language improvements to make sure that processes were clarified. In summary, this is the costing from our finance department for both the Marina and Public Works together. You can see the current 2020, and then you can see the adjustment and differences for 2021, 2022, and 2023. Adding in the longevity starting in 2022, and also based on their salary schedule, we adjusted the steps. We did increase their salary schedule from 8 steps to 10 steps going into 2022, and then you see the 2% COLA there. Any questions?
So before we go to the council for questions, I want to verify that we've received no comments from our citizens.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no public comments on this item.
Okay, no comments on either one of the items, 8B or 8C.
That is correct.
Thank you, Julie.
Comments on neither.
Okay, so we'll turn to the council and start with Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the clear, concise presentation there, Emma. And thanks to city staff and all the folks who worked on the negotiating team. It's always hard to do, right? We're trying to get out a crystal ball, and we're trying to make sure that we've got enough money to fund everything. At the same time, we want to make sure that everybody's getting paid what they're worth, right? And so the step bonuses, the 2 additional steps, I think, was an important thing for us to do this year. It gives the ability for people with that longevity to have those extra couple of steps. It gives a chance for some people to move up within departments who deserve that. And so, just thanks to everybody for all the hard work. It's never easy, and I'm glad we don't have to do it again for another couple of years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Wiesner. So anyone else? Okay. No questions? Any motions? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. You gotta do all the buttons. I will make the first motion.
Great.
I authorize the mayor to sign the labor agreement by and between the City of Oak Harbor and the Teamsters Union Local Number 231 for Public Works.
Second.
So I've got a motion and a second. Motion reads exactly like the recommended action. That motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Munns, second by Councilor Wiesner. Seeing no questions or further input, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That looks like it passes unanimously, okay, of those present. So now we have left the item 8C. You want to take a run at that one too, Mayor Pro Tem?
I'll be happy to, sir.
Thank you.
Authorize the mayor to sign the labor agreement by and between the City of Oak Harbor and the Teamsters Union Local Number 231 for Marina.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. That motion reads exactly like the recommended action in your packet under item number 8C. That motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Munns, second by Councilor Wiesner. Seeing no other input or questions, all in favor signify by raising your hand, please. Looks like it passes again unanimously. Okay, thank you very much, Julie, for that help. So that concludes item number 8C. At this point, we will move on to item number 8D, which is FDOC breakwater and marina repairs, change order number 1. And tonight, I believe, for this presentation is from our engineering department, Brett Arvidsson. Brett?
Yes, good evening. I see my presentation is up there. I'm here to talk about our City of Oak Harbor FDOC breakwater and flood repair project. This is specifically change order number 1 to our construction contract. Talk about background. Our marine experienced wind damage in both 2020 and 2021, and the repair of this damage is an insurance claim. And I have to make a note here is, unfortunately, yesterday we may have experienced more further damage, and we are assessing it right now. So I'll talk a little more about this in the future. So anyway, our wood damage is mostly to the patios out there. This doesn't look like it's bad, but uses actually structural damage, and those handrails have now fallen into the bay. And we've lost 2 more yesterday. Additional work, we did have a Department of Commerce grant for improvements to the marina. This grant work involved repairs and improvements, and it was a type of construction that was very good for us to be able to combine them and get an economy of scale with this. And but we did have to keep the insurance tax segregated from the grant tasks. And most of the grant work right now is actually involved with replacing the pile guides out there, and those are will be underway here. Talk about how we got here. Moffitt Nickel prepared contract documents and permit packages for the work. Next slide, please. We've also obtained the necessary permits. This is in water work, so we have a limited season. We have to be out of the out of the water by February 15th. We did open bids in August and awarded the construction to American Construction Company. And they intend to start the project around the first of the year. They figure it's going to take them about 4 weeks to do. Now, talk about our change order number 1. This is involving an emergency installation of a new navigation pile and light. This was struck by a boat and it was knocked over. This is an insurance issue. American Construction, like I said, intends to start work in around the first of the year, and we've got it designed and we're getting pricing together for it. But it's extremely time sensitive because we have to get the pile, and right now there's a real problem with getting piles, get it galvanized and get loaded up before they come out here around the first of the year. So we're trying to move this thing along as quickly as possible. As I said, this cost of this will be reimbursed by the insurance company. It won't be a city expense. In order to expedite the pile order and galvanization, we're requesting pre-authorization for the change order so we can have the pile available at the start of construction. So at this point, we're asking Council to authorize the mayor to sign a change order not to exceed $45,000 pending approval by the insurance company. And just to keep it moving along because we need to have the thing ordered within the next 2 weeks. At this point, it's recommended City Council authorize the mayor to sign change order number 1 with American Construction Company in an amount not to exceed $45,000 with reimbursement by the insurance company. The final contract amount will be increased from $913,344.30 by the eventual change order amount. And please note that the recommendation on the screen should say not to exceed, and it says to exceed. So, any questions?
Thank you, Brett. Before we turn to City Council, I just want to make sure that we've not received any input from the public regarding this.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no input on this item.
Thank you, Julie. So we will turn to Mayor Pro Tem Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Arvidsson, with, as you noted, recent more damage, is it feasible that this company, when the insurance also does that adjustment, will also be doing this? Or because we are undoubtedly going to have more storms, does we need to get someone else to come in and help? Because that log boom is really important to the marina and keeping out the extra logs and stuff like that that cause more damage. I'm sure Mr. Sublett could do that, but it's, I don't know, it seems to me there's a timing issue here, but I could be way off on that as far as the added damage that hasn't been properly assessed yet.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we're trying to move that along. I've got an engineer coming out in the next 2 days to assess it. I did take a look at it this morning. Some of the damage is in areas that we are already planning on fixing. It just got damaged worse, so it does impact our construction. You know, we have something we have to, it's worse than we anticipated. We may have to fix more. We may have other damage in some other areas that we're concerned about. FDOC itself is the breakwater, so we are concerned about also the insurance company's reaction to this, because this is the 4th claim in 4 or 5 years. So again, we need to assess it and find out. Like I say, in a perfect world, we could turn this around and have this contractor fix it as a change order, and we'd be in and out at the same time. But like I say, we're running out of time too, so we're just trying to keep it moving along. But hopefully, we'll have more information in the next few days.
Mr. Sublett, do you want to add any other comments to that?
Yeah, I think that Brett is correct. Some of the damage that was done to the breakwater was in areas that were damaged, and then there's new areas that we believe are damaged, but we're going to have Moffett Nichols out there to take a look at that. As far as the log boom goes, yes, it did break and we got inundated with logs, and we've started those repairs already. In fact, we've reestablished that log boom and have plans to upgrade it in the very near future, but we, in a sense, had to stop the bleeding and stop the logs from coming in. So we spent all day repairing that and moving logs. So we're working at trying to get through the damage from this storm and get the logs out of the marina at the same time. About half of what usually piles up on the north side did make it into the marina. And today we fashioned a bulldozer ascents out of our boat and just pushed a ton of them out right at the end of the day. So hopefully within a few days we'll be able to see some definite progress in that area. And in the meantime, re-engineer our log boom so it's a little stronger. It was unlike anything I've ever seen at the marina yesterday. It was just so rough coming in towards that I don't know that anything could have held up to that pounding it took.
Okay, and on the log boom, Mr. Albertson, will the insurance people also look at that as far as if that needs to be replaced? I mean, it's been repaired, as Mr. Sublett said, the bleeding has stopped temporarily, but if it is needed, will that also be looked at, sir?
We need to put in an insurance claim and classify the damage. So Chris will be eventually the ultimate person, but I'm assuming if it's damage from the storm, we also had like water line damage and some other things going on. So I'm assuming that's part of a claim. Now, whether to accept the claim or, how we handle how the claim is actually adjudicated, I'm not sure at this point. So at this point, all we can say is, yeah, we have a claim. Do they agree with it or not? We still have to work through.
Thank you very much to both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mrs. Muntz.
Any other council comments? Okay, Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, as far as this action, obviously, it's a pretty straightforward action. It's going to be reimbursed by an insurance company. So I would like to move that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign change order number 1 with American Construction in the amount not to exceed $45,000 with reimbursement by the insurance company. The final contract amount will be increased from $913,344.30 by the eventual change order amount.
Second.
So we've got a motion and a second. I believe that motion reads exactly like the suggested motion in the packet, with the correction of not to exceed even added. So thank you. That motion was made by Councilor Wiesner, second by Councilor Goebel. Seeing no other input or questions, all in favor signify by raising your hand, please. Does that pass unanimously? Julie? Yes, it looks like it. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Then we will move on to item number 8E, which is contract amendment number 1, Sound Law Center, LLC, for hearing examiner services. And I believe for this, we have our Director of Development Services, David Kuhl.
Thanks again, Mayor, members of council. This particular item is something we're happy to present. This is the hearing examiner services that we currently use for many of our cases. The contract that we currently have is with a company called Sound Law Center. We just established service with this firm a year ago, and we found in our first year our cost savings has been 50%. And we've been getting great service from this company. So rather than a 1-year contract, we're recommending a 3-year contract. And we just hope you have support for this item. This would be the recommended motion, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Kuhl. So again, I'll turn to Julie to make sure we've had no input.
That's correct, Mayor. No
Okay.
input from the public.
Thank you. Turn back to council. Councilor Wiesner.
Well, Mayor, this is another easy one to make a motion on. Obviously, this has worked out really well for our city and saved us some money and provided a high level of service to our customers. So I move to approve amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with Sound Law Center LLC for hearing examiner services.
Second.
Okay, got a motion in 2 seconds. Motion reads exactly like the recommended action. And that motion is made by Councilor Wiesner, and I'll give that second to Councilor Goebel. And so, seeing no other input or questions, all in favor of this motion signify by raising your hand, please. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 8F, which is our last item. I guess we will have a closed session after this, but last item for the public to participate and listen. This is somewhat an answer to Mayor Pro Tem's question, I think, at our last meeting about our legal services. We are proposing that we continue with Kenyon Dyson as our interim city attorney, providing our legal services. I know that Hillary was up here not long ago, and some on council got to meet with her. And I think you will agree that she is a very detailed, intelligent, and experienced person. This request for additional funds will, for the time being, it will actually not continue with an end date, but we're asking to continue with an increase in the amount of $125,000, which should provide about a 6-month time period. And during that time, unless you were to decide that you wanted to just continue with Kenyon, but we would recommend going out for an RPF and a regular process during this next 6-month time period to make a final decision on our legal services, or at least going forward. So with that, I think that we did have some slides, and I went through them rather quickly. We're asking for a motion to authorize the mayor to sign amendment number 2 to the agreement with Kenyon for legal services not to exceed $125,000. But before we turn to council for questions, I'd like to verify that we've gotten no input from the public.
That's correct,
Or if we
Mayor.
have, okay.
No input.
Okay, with that then we'll turn back to council for questions. Councilor Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a lot of different options here. So before I get into those, I do have a question. Mayor, can you clarify for me what's the typical process for this scenario? My understanding is that you may appoint an interim position for 2 90-day periods while the hiring and interviewing process happens, at which time the council votes to approve the selected candidate as our permanent position. So I'm just sort of unaware or not quite certain of what we're really doing here with where we've come to this situation where we're amending something and making a new agreement, and then we've got an alternative. So if someone could please clarify, I'm all ears. Thank you.
We're not making a new agreement. We're asking for an amendment number 2 for the existing agreement that we have for legal services. So we're not making any new agreement. And this request will provide additional funds. I have a limit to what I can spend of $30,000. My original hope was that I might get to the end of the year with that. That obviously is not going to happen. We are spending in excess of $20,000 a month. And in fact, our budget, unfortunately, for our legal services, about mid-year was over budget with our previous city attorney. And we have a lot going on in our city. We have a need for good legal services, and this will provide approximately 6 more months. We can give you a selection somewhere towards the end of that 6 months if you want to look at other firms. I'm not recommending at this time we do that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Just, so we just really option A or B, 6 months or go to a 12-month?
And unfortunately, we feel at this point in time, if we did go to 12 months, we would be actually hiring not an interim city attorney, but we'd be more bound to the process of going through an RPF. So I'm not asking for that at this point.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's obvious that we need to put in more money if we're going, because there's a lot going on. I mean, there's developments, I mean, there's just all kinds of things going on. If within 6 months we start to get close to the 125, will you come back to council then before the 6 months is over to get additional funds so that they're not stopping work, they're in the middle of something? I mean, it just seems like there's so many things that need to be gone and they've sort of gotten waylaid, so without stopping progress.
That's an excellent question. I would not want to stop any progress. I certainly would come back in plenty of time to do an RPF if that's what council prefers, and I believe they do. I mean, I don't think you're ready to authorize, maybe you are, I know you spent some time with Hillary, and if you were willing, we certainly have no problems with their firm. In fact, we've gotten pretty comfortable at this point, but you know, it's only been a little over a month since we started. That contract was last amended, or well, it was August or October 4th, so we are a little beyond a month, but about a month and a half. So we thought we'd get just a little more experience there, but if you thought you were ready, we would need to make sure that we meet our procurement requirements, which could be an RPF, and that's why we're not asking for that tonight.
Okay, well, I just think it is good to have an RPF, and I hope that this firm will submit. They certainly hit the, I guess, pavement running, and yet you liked them well enough. You wanted to go till 2022 of December, so I could go either way, but I think it's tidy and sticks with it to have the RPF. But if we don't like the applicants or whatever, that we would go out for a second round of RPFs or something. So, but I would be happy, I'd like to hear other discussion, but I would be happy to make the amendment later.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We have Councilor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple things I want to go through why I won't be supporting this, and then I'll end with some history. So at our September 22nd workshop, there was an agenda item on there, Mayor, that you pulled, and that was to decide how we were going to go forward, whether in-house or contract. So it's, and during that time, you said that you would like to have at least 2 people. So this is almost 2 months ago. At least 2 people on that committee to go through that selection process. Can you tell me, and I did respond to your in an email and asked to be on that committee. Can you tell me who's on that committee and where we're at in that process?
Well, there is no committee, Councilor Servadius. That my answer to your, or whoever asked that question that night, was when we planned to move forward with a PDF to select something other than an interim. then there would certainly be a committee and at least 2 counselors.
So I'm having a little bit of trouble. Your mic in the second half of the meeting, I don't know if you've changed position. It's kind of, for those of us out here, is kind of degraded. So once again, you pulled that on September 22nd and said you were putting together a committee that would involve at least 2. So here we are 2-ish months later with no action taken. So I guess I come back to what Mr. Mack was pointing out, kind of an abnormal process. The second thing I would point out, and the reason I won't support amendment number 2, is it has removed the end date. It actually removed eliminated the end date for the contract. So we have ordinances, we have laws, and we have a set of checks and balances that the council has. And this amendment is basically asking the council to give up that set of checks and balances and have an open-ended checkbook with regards to our city attorney. And I should have started with this. This is no reflection on Kenyon and Dyson. I think they're probably a very qualified firm. That's not a reflection on them. It's a reflection on the process. And third, we recently received an email from our city administrator with regards to staff comments, that he was sending out the staff comments that we had received as part of the survey. And I was kind of baffled because in that he said that he had checked with legal to make sure it was okay to release those comments. Mr. Oborn, do you know what that question of our legal team cost us? How much we were billed for that?
I can certainly research and provide an email explanation.
The reason I asked that and I'm baffled is because we displayed all of those comments online. They're available on YouTube and on Channel 10. I believe we still broadcast on Channel 10. So they'd all been put online. And then the council receives an email that says, I've checked with our city attorney to make sure it's okay to release these comments. And, to me, that's just indicative of the saying, if you watch your nickels and dimes, the dollars will take care of themselves. And so I think it's just if that involved any kind of a monetary expense, it was frivolous. So that's yet another reason that I don't support this. So I guess in conclusion, we had a city attorney that was more than happy to be with us through the end of the year and probably longer. That city attorney then resigned and cited a compromised working relationship with our city administrator, Blaine Oborn, and our HR director, Emma House. Council requested an executive session to hear more about that language because that was very strong language. And the mayor then fires the city attorney the day before he's set to testify in our executive session. And Mr. Oborn actually told our assistant city attorney not to show up either to that council meeting, although she was under contract through the end of the day on the 5th. So to me, this is not a money problem. This is a management problem. This is a clear management problem, and it's not a budget problem. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Servadius. We'll turn to Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. I support this. We need to get someone on board. It'd be my preference to go the 6 months ish because I think it's always preferable to have an in-house city attorney, just both physically and practically and financially. So I appreciate the service that that Kenyon Dyson is providing currently and will for the next few months. But I do hope that we can get moving on an RFP and get an in-house city attorney in place and hopefully get them on board and Ms. Evans and her peers can help get that person up and running. So I sound like Councilmember Munns wanted to make the motion, so I will defer to her, but just wanted to throw that out there that it's definitely my preference and I'm looking forward to getting the process moving for getting an in-house attorney on board. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Heisen. We'll turn back to Mayor Pro Tem, unless there are other questions or input. Okay?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the City Council approve continuing legal services with Kenyon Dixon by increasing the contract amount to $125,000 and eliminate the ending date. The increase will fund legal services for about 6 months. And I would like to add that we will do an RFP during that time.
Okay, Julie, I'm going to rely on you to help me read that back, if you could.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. One moment. I did not have the first part of that already prepared in my notes, so I apologize for that. I can give you the additional language right away.
Julie, just a minute. All I did was read City Council approve, will continue legal service, and I just added, and will do an RFP during this time. So it's just how it's written in my packet, other than
Yes,
4 words at the beginning of that sentence.
Correct. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have the packet up now. So the motion is to authorize the mayor to sign amendment number 2 to the agreement with Kenyon Dyson P. LLC for legal services not to exceed $125,000, continuing for about 6 months, and adding the provision that we will do an RFP. Is that correct, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Munns and seconded by Councilor Heisen. The motion starts off by authorizing the mayor to sign amendment number 2 to the agreement with Kenyon Dyson for legal services not to exceed $125,000, I think was added to run approximately 6 months, and during that time we would do an RFP.
Correct.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any other input or questions about that? All in favor signify by raising your right hand or raising your hand. So we've got 3 here.
So we have 5 in favor, Mayor?
Okay, we have 5 in favor, all opposed?
Councilmember Servadius is opposed.
Okay, so we've got 5 in favor, 1 opposed, and so that passes as read. Any other items for consideration? Or reports, discussion items? We do not have an executive session, so at this point we will adjourn this meeting, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor? Looks like that passes. That's going to pass. So we